What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is Leo's Nerd Talk, and today we're going to be going over the Fantastic Four first steps. So let's get into that. Hi, my name is Leo, and if you guys like talking about movie, TV show, video game related, or just anything nerdy, you are in the right place. And like I said, today we are talking about the Fantastic Four first steps. So without further ado, let's get into the review. Now, I was pretty excited for this movie. The two original Fantastic Four movies are two movies that I have a lot of nostalgia for. I also did do a couple reviews on those on the channel as well. So you want to go back and take a look at those to see my thoughts of the more original movies of the Fantastic Four. But like I said, I was pretty excited for this movie. I've mentioned this before. I don't have too much knowledge of the actual comic books themselves of the Fantastic Four. Most of my knowledge comes from those original early, mid to late 2000s Fantastic Four movies. So I know a little bit about the characters and their characteristics, kind of what they're supposed to be. And we've gotten a story very similar to this one as well, the Silver Surfer Galactus story from Rise of the Silver Surfer from 2007. But I do think they executed this movie a lot better than they did back in the 2007. But before I give you my thoughts about this movie, make sure to join the conversation. Let me know what you guys thought about the movie in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about the Fantastic Four as a whole. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get straight into my pros. And some of my pros, I think this movie just really bleeds into that early phases of the MCU. You feel kind of that early greatness of the Marvel universe, where you have great characters, a great story, great visuals, solid humor throughout the entire movie, good action sequences, good visual effects, characters you can invest yourself into. This definitely feels like Marvel is starting to really kind of find their footing again and starting to get into a role and really starting to build out another universe that we really want to invest ourselves in and really see where these characters are going to be going from here on out. And even though this movie is building towards something, you don't have to do any homework for this movie. And I think that's something that's very refreshing, especially for a Marvel project where you don't have to watch 10 different shows, 4 different movies just to be able to watch this movie and understand what is going on. This is, yes, a standalone movie that is building into something that's a bigger picture, but that is very nice about this movie, that it does feel refreshing to get into these characters. We are first meeting these characters for the first time in this movie. No previous homework needs to be done. And we kind of jump into this movie pretty nicely as well. We're not retelling the origin story from the Fantastic Four, which for the most part, we all kind of already know. We're jumping into these characters 4 years after they've gotten their powers. They give us a little bit of a montage of what happens, and it kind of just reiterates what we already know. But I do like that this story is deeper into their career as superheroes. We're not retelling that origin, because I think a lot of times with superhero movies, we really get into that repetitiveness, and this definitely feels fresh that they're taking a new direction, similar to what Superman did with James Gunn, where we're not retelling the origin story. We're jumping right into a brand new story. So it kind of makes it feel like that comic book-esque of the kind of nature of the movie, where you jump in and you're straight right into like a comic book panel and you're right into the action. There's no introduction. There's no retelling the origin, no reintroducing characters. We already kind of know and are familiar with what we're kind of getting ourselves into. And speaking of which, I think the entire cast here does a fantastic job. These are probably some of the best iterations or adaptations of these characters that we've gotten so far. For me, a standout is Ben, or the Thing. I think he has the most comedic relief throughout this entire movie, but I feel like he's also the most wholesome, the most caring, has the most heart. And I think that's a great kind of characteristic for his character, especially because, you know, we typically see Ben really kind of fighting with himself of being turned into this giant rock. And we don't really get that here. We get him kind of already accepting that for himself. He actually enjoys it. He has fun with it. And he's a good superhero as well that has a great heart and is very caring and loving for other people. He's kind of like, no pun intended, but the rock of this kind of family here. And we get that kind of that thing as like a running theme throughout this whole movie of just the importance of family, of trying to stick together, even when you have one of the most hardest decisions that is being faced right in front of you with the whole issue with Franklin. You have to figure out how to overcome those obstacles, how to come together as a family, figure out the actual proper solution, and not go to what seems the easiest in terms of what everybody else will think. You have to kind of sit down, take a step back, and really process everything to make sure you guys get together as a family, but also save the world at the same time, and also save your own, because that is ultimately what is most important to this. So that is a running theme of the importance of family and really sticking together. I think the action sequences across the board were done very, very well. Great visuals. I know a lot of people were kind of complaining of how the CGI looked like in the early trailers, but I think in context in the movie, it does, completely different. It does it justice. It looks absolutely amazing. You have really, really great scenes. Like there's this whole scene with the black hole that just reminded me, like we ripped this scene out of Interstellar because that's how visually pleasing it was. I thought it was absolutely amazing. Set design, I thought it was great. I love the aesthetic of this, like, I don't know what we call it, like 50s, futuristic 50s kind of aesthetic that we have to this movie that I think is actually done very well, especially for this kind of group of heroes. I think it fits perfectly with what they are. And then also just like stuff like Galactus or the spaceships or the way the Silver Surfer looks. I think Galactus looks absolutely amazing. We've seen Galactus previously before in like The Rise of the Silver Surfer, but he really only shows up as a giant space cloud. I like that we actually do get to see Galactus himself. I think they did it very well. It fits in the movie. It fits with the style that they're trying to go for. And overall aesthetically, I think they did him very well. He is very much a menacing character, and it's something that is just fun to see on screen. The destruction, the scope of his character, the power. It is a very, very great way they adapted the Galactus character. And overall, I think this is just a great story. I kind of already spoke on it a little bit, but there is a lot of emotion to this. There's a lot of inner turmoil between the Fantastic Four, of the decisions they have to make, the way Reed Richards kind of thinks about every single scenario. There's good emotion, there's good humor, there's good storytelling, great acting amongst all these characters. So overall, the story is very, very fun. And it just makes me feel, again, like we're in that early stages of the MCU where we really care about these characters. We're really building towards something, but it doesn't feel like every movie has to be about all these interconnecting multiverse universe scenarios. It feels very condensed, but it leads to something that is going to be a lot bigger. And I also do like the way they did the Silver Surfer in this movie as well. When it came to like the early 2000s movies with Rise of the Silver Surfer, I felt like they put a lot of focus on the Silver Surfer itself, and they kind of put Galactus on the back burner where Galactus didn't really feel like it was an actual threat. I like how they kind of did the reversal on the roles here, where the Silver Surfer feels a lot more heartfelt and caring, but we obviously know that she was chosen or kind of volunteered herself that her world doesn't get destroyed, and in return she'll help Galactus find worlds for him to consume. So Galactus really does feel like a threat in this movie, and it feels like just this like looming, ticking time bomb that at any second he's going to arrive and destroy the Earth. So we have to rush and really figure out what we need to do. So I like the way they kind of portray the Silver Surfer, where it didn't feel like the main threat was kind of just like the serving platter for Galactus, and Galactus really did feel like the big looming threat that we had to overcome. So I like how they kind of reversed that, where they didn't focus too much on it. While I wish we did get a little bit more of the Silver Surfer, overall I like the way they kind of did that. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the cons. And there's not much here. I think overall this movie was actually fantastic.
Say that again?
But I do think for a movie that is just under 2 hours, it is a little slow paced to begin with. While we don't get that origin story that kind of makes it feel like repetitive, there is a lot of world building and character building, and I do like that we have that, but it did it in a way where it did feel slow paced. A lot of dialogue, a lot of slow moments, a lot of just personal moments between characters, which overall, again, are enjoyable because we get to know these characters a little bit in more of a deeper way and have a little more connection with them. But it didn't feel like a hour 40-minute movie. This definitely felt like it was 2.5, close to 2:45, because of how slow paced the beginning portion of this movie really felt. Once we get past the halfway point, I think the pacing is a lot better, but I do think the beginning was just really, really slow. And I kind of already spoke on this a little bit, but I do wish we got a little bit more of the Silver Surfer. I do like, again, how they didn't make her the big looming threat or the main villain of this movie, but I do wish we would have got a little bit more emotion with her, a little bit more connection. We just get small little details. We do get a flashback of her story, but we don't connect ourselves enough with the character where it feels like you feel kind of sympathy for the Silver Surfer character. You're kind of like, oh wow, like that makes sense. Like that's, it's a good reason why, like now we know why she's doing this, but it's not one of those things where you feel bad for the character. You want to connect yourself more with the character. She does things that redeem her qualities and does things that you enjoy the character and you actually root for the character at a certain point. But at that point, it's already way too late in the movie, and she doesn't really get too much screen time for you to really invest yourself in the Silver Surfer character. Again, I know I just spoke on the runtime where it felt like it was very slow pace, but I think another part of it being slow pace was the fact that there is a lot of things going on in this movie. There is a huge kind of plot that is condensed into the last half of the movie, because we really don't get the Galactus thing until maybe 30 minutes into the movie. So you're already, you only have an hour left to tell the rest of the story, what it feels like. So we do feel like it condenses a lot of this plot into about an hour of the film. And I wouldn't have minded the slow pace even if we got a little bit longer of a movie, because we were able to flesh out the story and didn't feel like we had to rush so quickly. But I get that part of the rushingness of the film is because we are on a kind of ticking time clock where Galactus is coming. But I do think they could have fleshed it out a little bit more, especially with all the world building, all the character growth, the story arcs, the character arcs. At a certain point, it's a slow paced movie that felt rushed, if that makes sense. And that kind of leads into maybe my last point here. Although I do enjoy every single character in this movie, I think they all acted great. I enjoyed them. I think they're some of the best iterations we've had of these characters. But because we don't get too much screen time with everybody, sometimes they feel a little lackluster, or we don't feel like we got enough time with these characters to feel like we can invest ourselves fully in them. I'm excited that we're going to see these characters, moving forward with the MCU, but I do wish we got a little bit more time in this movie to really, really invest ourselves in them, because there are times where some of the characters feel like they have certain emotion responses to things that doesn't feel correct for that character or for the way that character typically acts. And I wish we would have got a little bit more of why they're acting that way, or why they're responding to certain things at this certain time. What caused this, what's the cause and effect of the emotional response of their character, where it feels a little, off page of what they typically would be like. So I wish we got a little bit more into that and delve a little more deeper into the interpersonal relationships between these characters to really, really feel like we can invest ourselves in them. But that's going to be it for this one, guys. Let me know what you guys think about the Fantastic Four First Steps. Is this the return of the MCU? I'm not sure yet. I think this can be a great stepping stone for where the MCU is going to head. There is, of course, 2 after credit scenes. You really only need to stick around for the first one that leads into something that is a lot bigger. The second one is kind of like a little fun thing, but I do see that the MCU is starting to get their footing back. It's starting to build to something big, where it's kind of those big superhero event moments, just like Endgame and Infinity War. So I'm very excited to see where the MCU is leading. And this definitely feels a lot more refreshing. And I can definitely see that not yet, but eventually the MCU is going to be quote unquote back. But again, if you guys like anything movie, TV show, video game later, or just anything nerdy, you are in the right place. I'll see you guys on the next video, and I hope your guys' day is fantastic.
Say that again?